You ever notice how the word impossible gets thrown around like a weapon? People use it to keep you in line, to remind you of your limits, to make sure you don't dream too loud. They say it with that little smirk, like they already know how your story ends. But what they don't realize is that the impossible isn't a wall, it's a test. A twisted little game between what you see and what's actually waiting behind the curtain. And just when you've been pushed to the edge, when your hope's been drained dry, that's when the air shifts. That's when something unseen starts moving, rearranging, rewriting everything you thought was final. You start to feel it before you see it, the pulse of something greater, something building quietly in the dark, just for you. Because sometimes, when the world says it's over, that's exactly when the impossible begins to breathe. You see, the word impossible isn't real. It's a label people use when they've run out of courage, a soft little word to hide their fear, their disappointment, their lack of belief. They say, it's impossible, not because it truly is, but because they've already given up trying. They call it logic, call it realism, but what it really is surrender. The kind of surrender that doesn't come from peace, but from defeat. You know the type. They dream small, live safe, talk big. They tell you not to reach too high because they don't want to see what happens if you actually touch the sky. Because if you do, you'll prove them wrong. And there's nothing more dangerous than someone who makes the impossible look possible. The impossible isn't out there, it's in here. It's the voice that tells you you're not enough, not strong enough, not smart enough, not chosen enough. It's the quiet whisper that sneaks in when you're tired, when you've been hurt too many times, when every door has slammed in your face. That's where it lives. But you don't destroy the impossible by fighting it. You destroy it by walking right through it, step by step, pain by pain, refusing to listen when it screams in your ear that it can't be done. Because it's never the wall that stops you. It's the belief that the wall is real. You want to know what makes the impossible possible? Desperation. That's the secret. When you've been backed into a corner, when you've got nothing left to lose, when life has stripped you of pride, ego, comfort, that's when you finally start to see what's been hiding in you all along. Because only then do you stop caring about how it looks or who doubts you. You just move. You just times do asterisk. You stop waiting for permission and start listening to that tiny, violent voice inside that says, keep going. That's the beginning of impossible turning to inevitable. People don't believe in miracles anymore because they expect them to look magical. They want thunder, lightning, fire from the sky. But the impossible rarely arrives with fireworks. It shows up in whispers, in quiet shifts, in small moments that no one notices but you. You think it's nothing until you realize everything started changing when you stopped chasing and started trusting, because faith isn't loud, it's steady. It's not about screaming, I believe. It's about holding your ground when everything is falling apart, refusing to bow to fear, even when it feels like your soul is cracking open. The funniest thing about impossible is that it always mocks you right before it collapses. It taunts you. It makes you doubt yourself, makes you want to quit, makes you feel like you're wasting your time. And then when you've cried your last tear, when you've stopped begging, when you've finally accepted that you can't do it on your own, that's when the impossible snaps. Because the moment you stop trying to force it, you make room for something bigger to move, and it moves in ways you can't control, can't predict, can't explain. You just know it's real, because suddenly everything that was heavy, starts to lift. Everything that was stuck starts to shift. Everything that was against you starts to make sense. You can't reason your way into the impossible. You can't plan it. You can't schedule it. You can only allow times it. The mind will tell you to quit. The world will laugh in your face. And even your own reflection will question if you've lost your mind. But that's the point. That's the cost of believing in something that doesn't exist yet. Every miracle starts as madness. Every breakthrough begins with someone being called delusional. And that's what separates those who make history from those who repeat it. The ones who do the impossible are the ones who kept walking when everyone told them to stop. You see, the impossible is clever. It disguises itself as failure. It makes you think the rejection is punishment, when it's really redirection. It hides blessings in heartbreak, strength in suffering, clarity in chaos. It wants to see if you'll still move when the light goes out, if you'll still believe when the evidence disappears. Because when you do, that's when the rules break. That's when you stop surviving and start creating. That's when the impossible stops being a word and becomes your new normal. The people who tell you something can't be done, they're just revealing their limits, not yours. Don't take advice from someone who's never dared. Don't let their fear become your ceiling. They'll call you crazy, reckless, foolish, but that's fine. Let them. Because when the impossible happens, and at times those same people will call it luck. They'll say you got lucky, that it just worked out. They'll never understand that it wasn't luck. It was alignment. It was patience. It was you choosing to believe when it made no sense. Because that's what faith really is, not hoping for what's easy, but trusting through what's insane. And when that moment comes, when the thing you thought could never happen stands right in front of you, you'll realize it was never impossible at all. It was just waiting for you to believe enough to see it. It's strange, isn't it? How when everything goes quiet, people start to panic. They think silence means nothing's happening. They get restless, anxious, desperate for signs. They start forcing, fixing, breaking things that were already in motion. But that stillness you fear, that's not absence. That's construction. That's the space where the unseen does its finest work. You don't hear it, you don't see it, but it's there, moving pieces you didn't even know existed, because the real magic doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need applause or attention. It just builds, silently, patiently, behind the curtain of your chaos. People think movement means progress, but sometimes it's the lack of movement that proves something's happening. You ever notice how calm the air gets before a storm? That eerie, heavy stillness that makes your chest tighten because you know something's coming? That's not emptiness, that's energy gathering. The same thing happens in your life. Right before the shift, right before the breakthrough, everything goes quiet. Conversations stop, doors close, people disappear, opportunities freeze. You start to think you've been forgotten, abandoned, left behind. But really, it's alignment. It's precision. It's everything finding its rightful place before it explodes into form. Most people can't handle that phase. The waiting, the invisible work, the silence that tests their sanity. They start doubting, overthinking, questioning every choice they made. They want to rush it, to see results, to know times is happening. But what they don't realize is, if you could see what's being built for you, you'd ruin it. You'd grab the hammer and start rearranging what doesn't need your touch. That's why the unseen stays hidden. It's protecting the process from your impatience. Because if you knew how close you were, you'd try to help. And your help would break it. You ever wonder why the darkest moments come right before things turn around? Because light blinds people who aren't ready for it. You have to adjust your eyes in the dark before you can see clearly in the glow. That's why everything slows down before it speeds up. That's why the silence feels endless before the sound of breakthrough hits. Because that quiet isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's teaching you how to trust what you can't measure, to believe in a movement that doesn't make noise, to rest, even when your mind is screaming to fight. The unseen works differently. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need your validation. It doesn't follow your timeline. It's not impressed by your deadlines or threatened by your doubt. It's deliberate. It's slow. It's strategic. It rearranges things in ways that make no sense until later. The people leaving your life, the sudden delays, the unexplained pull towards something new, all of it is part of the rearrangement. But you won't understand it while it's happening. You'll curse it, question it, cry over it. But one day, you'll look back and realize that every pause had purpose. Every still moment was positioning you for what was next. People think faith means shouting, praying, declaring. But sometimes faith is just sitting in the silence without giving up. It's waking up on the 100th day of nothing changing and saying, I still believe. It's walking when the path looks dead, loving when you've been hurt, trusting when the evidence is gone. That's real faith. Not the kind that shines when everything's easy, but the kind that survives the dark. Because in that darkness, something greater than you is moving pieces into place. And if you can hold on just long enough, you'll see that what felt like waiting was actually acceleration. You can't hear roots growing, but they are. You can't see the wind moving, but it does. You can't touch timing, but it controls everything. That's how the unseen operates quietly, invisibly, powerfully. It builds in the silence what noise would only destroy. That's why isolation isn't the enemy. That's why emptiness isn't the end. They're signals that something beneath the surface is stirring. The soil is shifting. The foundation is strengthening. And when the time is right, when everything aligns, it'll look like it happened overnight, but it didn't. You just didn't see what was happening underneath. And here's the trick. The more silent it gets, the bigger the movement coming your way. The universe saves its loudest moments for those who endured the quiet without losing their faith. Because silence is the ultimate test. It separates the ones who perform belief from the ones who live it. When everything looks still and you still choose to trust, that's when you pass. That's when the impossible starts moving. You won't feel it at first. You'll wake up one morning and something will just shift. The air will feel different. The weight you've been carrying will feel lighter. People will call it luck, timing, coincidence. But you'll know. You'll know it was built in the silence. You'll know it was always moving, even when you couldn't see it. You ever notice how pressure has a way of revealing who you really are? Not when things are easy. Not when the lights are bright, but when everything's closing in on you. When the weight feels too heavy, when your mind starts to break, when every part of you wants to scream, I'm done. That's when the truth steps out. See, people say they want to grow, they want to change, they want to evolve, but they don't want the pressure that comes with it. They want strength without struggle, gold without fire, victory without battle. But the universe doesn't work like that. You don't get transformation from comfort. You get it from the kind of pain that makes you question if you'll ever make it out alive. Pressure is the proof that something valuable is forming. You don't get diamonds without weight. You don't get steel without heat. You don't get greatness without breaking a few times along the way. Every time you've been stretched, every time you've been crushed, every time you thought it was over, that was pressure molding you into someone new. Because there's a difference between those who dream and those who endure. The dreamers talk about change. The endurers' times become times it. They bleed for it. They survive for it. They learn to keep walking even when their knees are shaking. Funny thing about pain, it doesn't ask for permission. It just walks in, uninvited, and rearranges everything you thought you understood about yourself. It takes what you thought was strength and tests it until it cracks. It takes your patience and stretches it until it snaps. And in that breaking, something strange happens. You start to see pieces of yourself you didn't know existed. Anger turns to fuel. Fear turns to focus. Confusion turns to creation. That's the hidden gift in pain. It doesn't just expose weakness. It forges resilience. It teaches you how to breathe fire when everyone else is gasping for air. People think when life falls apart, it's a sign they're cursed. No. It's a sign that something new is being built, and you're being tested to see if you're strong enough to hold it. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every sleepless night is part of the pressure test. It's not there to destroy you. It's there to see if you'll fold or forge. And most people fold. They run back to what's easy. They lower their standards, settle for less, call it peace. But those who don't, those who let the pressure burn them alive, they rise from the ashes with eyes that see differently. They stop chasing what's shiny and start seeking what's solid. Pressure doesn't just shape you, it exposes what's fake. The friends who disappear when you fall. The people who cheer for your comfort but not your comeback. The voices that whisper doubt when you start to rise. Pressure shows you who's real and who is just passing through. And that's the beauty of it. It cleanses your life without your permission. It removes what you would have never let go of yourself. It's brutal, yes, but it's honest. Because sometimes the only way to see truth is through pain. And it's not just the people around you that get exposed. It's times you asterisk your fears, your insecurities, your illusions. All the masks you wear start to melt under heat. The version of you that needed validation, gone. The version that cared too much about opinions, burned. The part that played small to make others comfortable, reduced to dust. Pressure kills the old you so the real one can breathe. That's why it hurts. It's a funeral for the version of you that couldn't carry what's next. But here's the twist. The more pressure you feel, the closer you are to the breakthrough. Because the hardest part of the process is always right before the shift. That's when you feel like you can't take it anymore. When quitting feels logical. When the noise in your head says, this is pointless. That's the signal. The breaking point isn't the end, it's the beginning of creation. Every star in the universe was born out of an explosion. Every life-changing idea came from chaos. Every miracle you've ever seen started as something falling apart. Pressure isn't the enemy, it's the midwife of transformation. You can't pray for destiny and then reject the process that builds it. You can't ask for purpose and then complain about pain. It's the same thing. You can't be trusted with power until you've survived the fire that teaches you how to use it. That's why some doors don't open when you want them to, because you're not built strong enough to handle what's behind them yet. The pressure you're under right now is the weight training for what's coming next. And when it's done, when the pressure finally breaks, you won't be the same. You'll walk differently, speak differently, believe differently. Because once you've survived the impossible, everything else feels small. So when it gets heavy, When you can't see the way forward, when everything in you wants to give up, remember this. Pressure doesn't come to crush you, it comes to crown you. It's the universe whispering, "You're next." It's the sign that the impossible is about to be made possible. And it's using your pain as the proof that you're ready. You ever notice how silence can be louder than any scream? When people start pulling away, when eyes avoid you, when the ones who swore loyalty begin to vanish like smoke in the dark, that's when you start to understand what loyalty really means. Not when everything's fun, not when you're shining, not when you're winning. No, loyalty's tested in the shadows when there's nothing to gain, when standing next to you costs something. It's in those quiet, empty moments that you learn who was real and who was just rehearsing. People love to shout loyalty until it's time to prove it. They'll post it, preach it, wear it like perfume, but the second things get ugly, they're gone. They don't even say goodbye. They just fade. And that silence, that space they leave behind, it burns deeper than betrayal itself. Because betrayal at least has noise. It has confrontation. Silence, that's cold. That's deliberate. It's the sound of someone deciding you're not worth their truth. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. You start replaying moments, conversations, laughter, trying to see the cracks that were always there. But here's the strange thing about disloyalty. It teaches you what no book, no preacher, no friend ever could. It shows you that trust is currency, and most people are broke. You start realizing that loyalty isn't about words, it's about consistency. It's about the ones who show up when you have nothing left to offer, the ones who don't flinch when the world turns its back on you, the ones who defend you in rooms you're not even in. You start seeing the difference between people who times your light and those who would stay even if it went out. And suddenly, you stop chasing crowds. You start valuing the few who stayed when the music stopped. You learn that loyalty isn't a contract, it's a reflection. People can only give what they are. If someone betrays you, it's not about you, it's about the limits of their character. You expected a lion from someone who's still a sheep. You gave them trust, and they gave you survival, instincts in return. It hurts, sure, it cuts deep, but it also cleans you, because sometimes the only way to know who belongs in your future is to lose them in your present. Pain does what peace never could. It exposes truth. You don't lose loyal people. You lose pretenders, and that's a gain in disguise. And when you've been betrayed enough times, something inside you shifts. You stop believing promises. You start watching patterns. You stop begging for honesty. You start expecting silence. Not because you've become cold, but because you've learned. You've seen the script too many times. The smile, the comfort, the timing, then the distance. The excuses, the silence. You know the rhythm. And yet, deep down, you don't grow bitter, you grow sharper. You learn to love carefully. You learn to trust slowly. You learn that loyalty doesn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes, it's quiet presence. Sometimes, it's just someone who doesn't leave when everyone else does. People don't understand that loyalty is a choice, not a feeling. It's not convenient, it's not conditional, it's tested. And the ones who pass the test aren't perfect, but their time's real. Asterisk. They might disagree, they might get mad, but they never disappear. They stay through the fire. They get burned with you if they have to. That's the kind of loyalty that doesn't need words, it shows up in action. The kind that says, I don't need a reason to stay, I just choose to. And when you find that kind of loyalty, you stop settling for anything less. But betrayal, it does something to you. It hardens you, sure, but it also frees you. Because once you've been stabbed in the back enough times, you stop letting people walk behind you. You stop explaining your worth to people who never saw it. You stop opening doors for those who only came to take. Betrayal teaches boundaries. It builds walls, but not to keep love out, to keep parasites away. You stop being available to those who vanished when you needed them most. And that's when real peace begins, not when everyone's around, but when the wrong ones are gone. Loyalty also has a way of coming full circle. The ones you helped when they were drowning, they might pretend not to see you when you're sinking. But life keeps receipts. Time always exposes the truth. The ones who abandoned you will one day need what you gave so freely. And you won't need revenge, you'll just smile. Because loyalty isn't about what they did to you. It's about who you became because of it. You didn't let their betrayal turn you into them. You stayed true, even when they didn't. That's power they'll never understand. So when you find yourself alone, surrounded by silence and ghosts of people you thought were forever, don't curse the emptiness. That's not loss, it's refinement. The universe just did you a favor. It removed actors from a stage that was meant for truth, because loyalty, real loyalty, it's not built in good times. It's forged in fire, in chaos, in heartbreak. And if you can stand through that, if you can look at betrayal and still say, I'll stay real anyway, then nothing can break you anymore. Funny thing about success, everyone wants to touch it, but no one wants to understand what it costs. They see the shine, the applause, the attention, but they never see the blood under the fingernails. They cheer when you rise, but they'll whisper when you fall. They'll call you lucky when you win, but forget the nights you cried, the times you broke, the sacrifices you made when no one was watching. Success? It's not a gift. It's a transaction. You trade comfort, sleep, peace, sometimes even pieces of yourself just to climb one step higher. And the cruel part? When you finally get there, the same people who doubted you will pretend they believed in you all along. People love winners, but they don't love the times making times of a winner. They don't love the silence, the rejection, the loneliness. They don't love when you have to pretend everything's fine while your world collapses inside your chest. They don't love when you fail, when you doubt yourself, when you question if all this pain even leads anywhere. But that's the part that shapes you. The suffering, the discipline, the madness. It chisels something raw and unbreakable inside you. You start realizing that success isn't about what you gain, it's about what you're willing to lose. You lose comfort. You lose people. You lose the illusion of fairness. Because this world doesn't reward effort, it rewards endurance. It rewards the ones who keep going after the applause fades. The ones who keep grinding when no one's clapping. You start noticing that the road to success isn't a highway, it's a graveyard. Full of broken dreams, abandoned goals. People who gave up because it got too heavy. And you? You walk through that graveyard every day, carrying your pain like armor, smiling through scars. You stop waiting for the world to understand your fight, you just fight anyway. There's a moment in every journey where it all feels meaningless. You wake up and think, why am I even doing this? That's the breaking point. That's where most people quit. But that's also where success begins to notice you. It hides behind exhaustion, behind fear, behind rejection. It waits until you have nothing left, just to see if you'll move anyway. Because success doesn't come to the strong, it comes to the stubborn. The ones who refuse to quit when it no longer makes sense. The ones who crawl when their legs give up. The ones who whisper, just one more try, even when they're shaking. That's where greatness is born. And then comes the shift. You stop chasing approval. You stop needing validation. You stop explaining your dream to people who sleep peacefully while you're up fighting your demons. You become dangerous not because you're cruel, but because you've tasted pain and survived. You stop fearing failure because you've already met it too many times. You start walking like you've seen too much to go back. That's when success starts moving toward you, not because it feels sorry, but because it knows you've earned the right to stand where others fell. People will tell you success changes you, and they're right, it does. But not in the way they think. It doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you aware. You start seeing how fake most of it is. The smiles, the promises, the sudden interest. You start realizing that success doesn't expose you. It exposes times them. Asterisk. The envy, the greed, the hidden resentment. You start losing people you thought were loyal and gaining strangers who believe in your vision. It's a twisted exchange. You lose hearts but gain purpose. You stop chasing relationships and start chasing alignment. You don't beg to be understood anymore. You're too busy building what they can't imagine. And even after you've made it, the hunger never really leaves. Because success isn't a destination, it's a cycle. The moment you think you've arrived, it slips away. It demands more, always more. More time, more focus, more sacrifice. It's not satisfied with your comfort. It wants your obsession. You wake up every day and realize you're back at the bottom of a new mountain. You might have climbed higher than before, but the climb never ends. And somewhere deep down, you stop hating the pain. You start craving it. Because it reminds you you're still alive, still fighting, still becoming. People will watch you glow and assume the light came easy. Let them. They'll never understand the cost. They'll never see the tears that watered your growth. They'll never feel the emptiness that followed each victory. They'll never know how close you came to quitting. But that's fine, because success doesn't need to be explained, it needs to be earned. It doesn't care about your excuses or your background. It only respects persistence. The question isn't whether you deserve it, it's whether you're willing to bleed for it. And when the noise fades, when the lights dim, when the crowd leaves, you'll stand there, realizing something no one told you. Success doesn't complete you. It reveals you. It shows you who you really are when there's nothing left to chase. Whether you become humble or hollow depends on what you carried through the fire. Whether you learn to value the journey or get addicted to applause depends on what you were chasing all along.